Hi everyone, I'm April, and you're watching the Tangled Cat Speaks. It has been quite a long time. Hold on, I gotta dismiss an alarm here. It has been quite a long time since I last podcast. I believe it was the very beginning of August that I put up my last one. There's been quite a few things going on in my life that were not happy, and I just wasn't in a good place here to record anything. And I didn't even really get a whole lot of knitting done that first couple of months, or any kind of crafting done. But I'm not going to talk about all of that. If you have been following me on Instagram, you probably know. I might go over it just a little bit at the end, but then again, I might forget. So, I kind of got my mojo back in the last couple of weeks, so I do have some things to share with you. So let's start with the big one. The last thing that I really mentioned was this cardigan. I showed you guys with all my modifications. It didn't quite turn out like I had wanted. I think I was talking about how I wanted it to end up being a waterfall front. Because I had to modify for some problems I was having with the placement of the raglans, the raglan increases. And so I just continued the raglans all the way down. I'm waving this all over the place. I continued the raglans all the way down, and it created this, where is it? It created this sort of corner on either side. I can put up some pictures because I'm kind of in a weird spot right here and I can't put it on to show you, but I can show some pictures, put those up here. I do have it completely done. I've worn it a couple of times. It's very warm and snuggly, even though it's quite lightweight, because this was a lace weight yarn with a mohair. And down here was 2 mohairs held together. It does kind of roll up a little bit. I wish I had done this garter stitch edging a couple of more rows longer, just so that it loses a little bit of the tendency to roll. But other than that, it's not terrible. I did wide cuffs on the sleeve. I didn't do a whole lot of decreasing on there, but I really like how that fits, and it comes to the palm of my hand, so I like that. Overall, very nice, and it was highly modified from the original pattern. The original pattern is supposed to be, just barely open, straight front, short sleeves. Obviously I did them long, but I love how it turned out, and I'm super happy that it's done. Now, with that pink yarn, I had this left, and I wanted to use it up, so I've already started another project, and what I'm doing is a pair of DK weight fingerless gloves called the Traveling Cable Hand Warmers. So I'm holding this yarn, which is Lorna's Laces lace weight yarn in the colorway Somerset. So it's pinks and greens and blues, and I'm holding it together with this. It's acrylic, I think it's acrylic, nylon, and mohair. It's Diablo by Hobie. Got it online, and I decided to pull out the blues instead of the pinks or the greens. So that's what I'm doing. I'm holding them all 3 together to make a DK weight, and I'm using my 9-inch circulars, cable needle, to start these traveling, let me see if I can get that, there you go, the Traveling Cable Hand Warmers. These are by Purl Soho, and I'm super excited with them. I got really excited to start them and get them done, and you can see that blue, because there's 2 strands of it, is really taking over the pink lace weight, but the pink does, you can still see the pink does pop out. So I really like that, because I was worried that mixing the 2 colors, the 2 different yarns, and especially because this one has a lot of color to it, a lot of different colors, I was worried that my cables weren't going to stand out, but no, they're standing out really, really well. Very, very happy about that. Then I decided I wanted to crochet, because crochet for me is pretty mindless, and that's what I really, really needed during all of that time, was something mindless. So many episodes ago, I was talking about how Hue Loco was doing all of these, Hue Loco Yarns was doing a lot of colorways inspired by farmyard chickens and roosters. And I bought 3 sets of them, the 2017, 18, and 19, I believe. And then I kind of stopped because I had a bunch, because there were somewhere between like 7 and 9 per set. And I was like, I got so many. And so I haven't done any. I don't know if she's even still doing those. I think she is. I think I saw that she is. But I haven't bought any of them after the 2019 run. But so I went through there, and what it was, when you ordered those chicken and rooster sets, they're sock sets. So you get a full 100 gram skein and 2 20-gram minis. So I picked the main skeins out of those that I wanted, and I put all the minis aside from several of, I didn't use all of the chicken and rooster yarns I have, but the ones that I chose, I put all those minis aside, and I'll do something with them later. And holding them together, they actually look really cool, like they blend together. So I think that'll be a nice project with those. But what I did was I picked 13 Hue Loco yarns in the Phyllis sock base. Most of them are from those chicken sets, but some are from other ones that I just kind of bought randomly. I don't know if she still does it, but I got some that she did in discount bundles that she called Misfits. So I got some of those in here, and just different random that are all on the same Phyllis sock base. And I went through all my mohair, which would be some of the Diablo and some of the Aloft by Knit Picks. And I chose colors that either highly contrasted or very much matchy kind of with the yarn that I held it with. So I was holding the fingering weight double with a mohair as well. So that made it kind of like a heavy worsted weight. And I did this. So there's 13 different color combinations. And this is the Jacob Shawl by Harrietta Wright. And it is a free pattern on Ravelry. And so I repeated 12 colors 3 times. And then I've got this bottom color. I only used that at the very bottom and at the very top. But I love how this turned out. I wasn't sure how crazy this was gonna look, because all of these yarns looked very, very different. But this somehow managed to turn out so autumnal, and it screams fall, and I love it. It's huge. I did do it a little bit wider, like this way, than what the pattern called for. I added a few extra rows. I think it called for something like 33 or 32 rows, and I did 40. But it's super long. It's about 80 inches long, and it's about almost 30 wide. But it's a lovely, nice, warm wrap, and I just love how the colors look. Beautiful crochet shell stitch, and it's a 2-row repeat, so it was very easily memorizable. Had lots and lots of fun with it. But what I love the most is the way that the colors look in these shell groupings. It makes me think of, I don't know if they have these all over the place, but here in New Mexico, there's a place called Klein's Corners. And whenever we travel out of town and happen to go in that direction, we stop at this gas station, rest stop, convenience store, restaurant, all kind of little thing. And there's a little, what do you call it? Like souvenir shop. And they have this big box of different semi-precious gemstones, the uncut, maybe not even semi-precious, just pretty gemstones, you know, just a big box of colorful rocks, let's say. But, you know, there's quartz and whatever, something that kind of looks like amethyst. I don't know if it's actually amethyst, but anyway, it's a big box of very colorful stones. And that's what this reminds me of, just lots of color, but it looks earthy, and I love it. Love, love, love it. This one here was actually a very pale creamy color, but I held it with, like I said, some of these are very contrasty to the colors that I paired it with, but it is very pale, but I already had a pale here, so I changed it up by using a very bright blue mohair. So, I mean, it's amazing the things that you can do with mohair to change things up. And I had so much fun, but I had a lot of this left. So that led me to one of my works in progress. And that is called the Everyday, where is it at? Everyday Granny Square Cardigan, and that is by Cintia Gonzalez. And so I mentioned 13 colors. I did not use mohair with this. I'm holding them double, holding each colorway double on itself, but no mohair. So 13 colors, and it's crocheted granny squares. It requires 40 granny squares and 2 triangles, and that are going to be stitched up into an open front cardigan. I guess you could maybe put buttons on it if you want to, but an open front cardigan, kind of like the sleeves would probably come down to here, at least according to the picture. So I had a dilemma of what was I going to do with these 13 colors? How was I going to mix them up into these different granny squares to make it look like one cohesive project and not like too crazy? So I did this whole process of, this is my psychoticness. I did this whole process of writing down numbers 1 through 13, and I knew that I was going to be doing 6 rows per square. So I needed to break up the 13 colors to 6 rows and distribute it through the 42 different pieces. So I typed out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the next one 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I started the next section 13, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I just kept like wrapping around that number until it started again with 1 at the very beginning. So that gave me 13 different possibilities there. And then I did the same thing so that was basically 1 by 1, and then I did 2, like, which one is like 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, and then because 13 is after 12, but then it goes right to 1, so then it would be 1, 3, I don't know my odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. And so I just kept doing that, and then I did it by 3s, by 4s, 5s, 6s, and 7s, and 9s. So I was typing out all of these different combinations. So, you know, say, until they started repeating themselves. It was just, I don't even know how to explain it because it was just so crazy. I didn't do 8s because that didn't give me very much option. It kind of repeated itself almost immediately. So I didn't do it by 8s. But anyway, I had all of these 13 colors, and I'm not going to show them to you in the balls because I still have them, but they're all a mess in my little craft room. But I have, how many do I have? I have 13 squares done so far. Oh no, there was more to that process. I forgot. So I listed all of those combinations, but that was like a page and a half of combinations. I only needed 42. So I did a random number generator. I should have brought you that paper, show you what I did. But I did a random number generator to help me pick which combinations out of that whole page and a half that I wanted to use. So I picked out 42. Sorry, this is confusing. It was confusing when I did it, but I picked out 42 different combinations using the random number generator. Then I went through to make sure that all of the squares started at least once with each color, and went through and make sure that all of the colors were represented at least once at the very end of each square. I still know that I'm going to end up with some squares I use more of the color, or some colors I'm going to use more of than some of the other ones, but I at least wanted the beginnings and the ends to be used at least once. Don't ask me why. But I have 13 squares done so far. I have them labeled they're going to be 1 through 42, so that when I lay them out, I can mark them on the little schematic that they have on the pattern. I can mark which number, because I'm going to lay them out on the ground, on the floor, and decide where I want the colors, because some of these squares ended up darker than others, lighter, more random, less random. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm going to lay out my colors, and when I finally get the placement how I want, using these numbers, I'm going to mark it on the schematic which of my squares goes where in the schematic. So that's what these are about. But you can see they came out, some of them are, I'm not going to show you all of them because there's a big pile here, but I love them, and they all they're different. I'm not going to have any repeating sequences in this at all, and yet they all managed to go together, and I'm super, super excited. So like I said, I have 13 done, and I have to do 40 of these big ones and then 2 triangles. Super, 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 super excited. And they're just so pretty. Like, no matter how you look at them, they go together. I love it. I love it. But it was a big mental process. It took me an entire day just to figure out these color orders. And I know I didn't explain it that clearly, but it wasn't really that clear in my head when I did it. So that I don't know how much. I'm hoping that I have enough to finish the way that I've planned it. But if I happen to run out of a color, then I'll just substitute a random one in there of what I've got. Just pick from random from the bag and then go back to the sequence, if that makes sense. But I'm hoping that I have enough of each color to finish as I've planned it. We'll see. And then whatever's left over from that, some of it will go into my memory blanket. And depending on how much I have left, I might end up with some scrappy socks. I don't know. But that's what I got going there. And it's so mindless and it's so quick because I'm holding it double. And I think I'm using a K hook. I don't remember the millimeter on that. 6. So I'm just really excited to be using all of these. And it's cool because these are all the same colors, but I don't know. They just somehow go. I don't know how that happens. Hue Loco, what is her name? Nicole. She made these chicken sets, and they're all very different, and yet they go together. It's crazy. I'm having such a blast with it. It's definitely one of my meditative, calm kind of projects. What else? So I started I have 2 more whips to show you, and I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so my son told me that a pair of socks that I made him probably about 6-7 years ago finally got a hole in them, and those were socks that I made using some random fuzzy kind of acrylic yarn, and I really don't want to have to try to mend those. No, I don't want to do that. So I decided I was going to make him another pair of socks. And the last time I made him socks was for Christmas, and they were fingering weight. The pair before that was a sport weight, and then the pair before that was the really thick acrylic fuzzy, and I think that might have been either a DK or a worsted. So when I made him these fingering weight this past Christmas, he said he liked them, but he likes the feel of the thicker ones better. So these are another Hue Loco yarns, and they were also chicken yarns. And don't laugh at my crazy setup here, because I just had to do some frogging. But let's see, this will probably be easier. These are two also Hue Loco chicken yarns, and I don't remember the names. I think this is Golden Phoenix and Americana maybe. And again, I'm not using the minis that came with this. I put those to the side. But yellow and tan, and I'm holding them together. But I did have to frog these because he's got an 11-inch foot, and I don't know what I was thinking. I miscalculated. Somehow, math is usually pretty good for me, but it didn't work out this time. And instead of coming out with an 11-inch foot, it was 13. So I just did a whole bunch of frogging to get it back to where I'm going to start increasing for the gusset. Now this pattern is called something. Smokin' Hot Socks by Anita Grahn. And this I got as a set. I think there's 3 sock patterns within the same download. And it's, I don't know, there's some things about it that I did change up. A couple of minor things, like the placement of the heel for some reason. Like the back number of stitches on the bottom of the foot is 24 all the way across, but she's got the heel set up so that it's like 1 over to the left. It's like 1 left of center. So I changed it so that it is exactly center, and then I did the same thing for the heel turn. I had to fix that, but then I did all the way up to the foot, the gusset, the heel turn, and the heel flap, and I was about to go starting in the round again, and I don't know what bells went off in my head. Said maybe I better check the length on these, because I looked at it and I'm like, oh my God, those are huge. I know he's got big feet, and I was laughing. Then I thought, oh, I better look. I'm feeling a little weird about this. So sure enough, it's 2 inches too long. So I frogged it all out. But now I know how long it is from the gusset increases to the end of the heel turn. So I know how long that is. So I knew how far to rip back, and I marked that, and that's where I'm at. I'm about to start the gusset increases again. And this pattern, it's really cool. It's toe up, and the heel, or the gussets, are under the heel, which is really cool. Most sock gussets you see on the side of the ankles, but the gussets are going to be under the heel. So sorry, my nose and my eyes just started really itching. It's a 1x1 rib on top. Bottom is just stockinette, and then when you start going back in the round, it'll be 1x1 all the way around. Now for the toe, I used some stash yarn. I wasn't sure that, because he's got a long foot and long legs, I wasn't sure that this would be enough. It probably will be, but I just wanted to be sure. So I did my toes in a different yarn. And what I did was held these two, and I don't know the names of these. I'm pretty sure at least, I think this is an old Pandy's Jewels yarn, but I don't remember. But they're both fingering weight. One's like purpley with gray, and this is a rust color. But I held those together for the toe, and you can see it kind of made it. My lighting is terrible, but I think it looks good. I didn't mean it to look quite so Hogwartsy, but and I'm going to try to not change colors the rest of the way, but if I have to, I could put it at the very top of the leg. The less ends I got to do, the better. But I was so bummed. I literally knit from the beginning of the gusset increases to the end of the heel flap. I was about to start up the leg when I realized my mistake. And so that was about 3.5, 4 hours of knitting that I ripped out in 2 minutes. And I was sad. And it's in timeout now. So, and then I'm doing another, and I seem to be on a kick of thicker yarns because I've been holding my fingering weights, or like earlier, my lace weights with something to make it thicker yarn. So things are going by really, really quickly, and I'm enjoying that. So this last whip that I'm going to show you is also 2 strands of fingering weight held together to make some fingerless mitts, and these are just 1x1 rib. Actually, that's a modification. These are called Friends by Dani Sunshine, and the pattern just had 1x1 rib at the cuff, and then stockinette all the way up through until you do the last bit of ribbing at the fingers. It's fingerless, but I decided to do 1x1 all the way up because I love gloves or mitts when they're more snug to the hand. They just feel almost like a compression, not super tight, but almost like a compression feeling, and then it just seems extra warm to me when they're just right up close to the skin. So I've got these to the point where I can separate the thumb. I've done all of the gusset, you could probably tell here, the thumb gusset. I did all up in here. So I'm going to separate the thumb out and then finish the hand and then go back and do the thumb, and then I'll do the other one exactly the same. So these yarns are actually, and I'm going to put up a picture of up here because these are yarns that I over dyed just the other day. She likes dark colors, my daughter, and I don't have a lot of super dark colors. So I went through my stash and I found some yarn that I got from, again, Hobie. They're just 50 gram skeins of fingering weight sock yarn, and it was just kind of that thing where I thought, oh, I can make a pair of socks and just add whatever random bits and leftovers and scraps that I have for toes, heels, and cuffs. But they've been sitting and sitting and sitting and sitting, and I haven't used them. So I decided to get them both since they were the same brand, same yarn base, and I decided to over dye them both in the same navy dye bath. So in the picture, you'll see that they were very different. This one was the very tan one. This one was the very pink one. But when you hold them together, it's just, because they're so similar and they're in the same sort of color family, they blend out really, really well. And I don't know if you could see it in my lighting, but let's trying to find it like right in here. Like it's kind of hard to see, but I can see pops of green, like bright green, and really, really dark, like eggplant purple. Like it's very, very speckly, but you never really see that it's 2 different yarns. And I've done this before, I think, with some other colorways previously, other projects that I've shown you before, but 2 very, very, very different colorways that I over dyed to make a little similar. And I could have gone even darker. I could have just done black, but I didn't want to do black. And I like the blue, and it was really interesting to me how different they turned out. I was really thinking that the blue was going to completely overpower them and then be the exact same shade of blue, but it didn't. I didn't have enough blue in there to make them the exact same color, and I like that. I like how it turned out, so that it's more of a variegated situation going on when I knit it up. So I'm having fun with that. These gloves and the socks that I just showed you are being done on US 5 needles. I'm using just some random, none of these even match. Look at my DPNs, don't even match. I have random sets that I inherited somewhere along my knitting journey. So I just kind of have them in a bunch of different sizes and colors and whatever in a big jar in my room. So those are both using size 5s. And I've got many other projects going on, but those are the ones that I wanted to highlight right now. I have been doing some cross stitch, and I might throw up a couple of pictures of what I've been working on. Cross stitch is what I really did during a lot of that low time for me. I really got into doing the cross stitch. It was kind of meditative and just something different, and I was really enjoying it. It's a cross stitch pattern by the Witchy Stitcher. It's the Supernatural Stitch Along. And I'm way behind. I'm not anywhere near there. I think they're on clue 13 and I'm barely on like 6. I'm very much behind because first of all, I started late, and then I'm not doing it as often as I should to get the stitches done, the stitching done, excuse me, on time. But I'm really, really enjoying it. And it's all of these fun little creatures, supernatural creatures, and I'm just having so much fun with it. But I'm not showing it like right now because it's a mess. Because it's such a big piece of fabric, I have it kind of rolled and folded and pinned so that it's kind of out of the way of my hands. But it just looks terrible to show, and if I unroll it, it's just going to be wrinkled and ugly. I'll show you later. But I will show you some pictures that I have taken of some of the creatures in the past. I took pictures mostly when I was having to move the hoop, but yeah, it looks awful just holding it up. It's a mess. So that's all of the knitting content I got for today. You know what? I just realized I didn't even introduce myself, other than saying my name. But I do knit, crochet, cross stitch. I love to read, audiobooks, and eyeball reading. I did a lot of audiobooking during that time too, when I was cross stitching. So I went through dozens and dozens of books in these last few months. And I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I do have some that I want to mention just kind of real quick. So I mentioned before that I've been reading the series, The Expanse, mostly because I really liked that TV show on Amazon Prime. And I am just now finishing up book 6, which is called Babylon's Ashes. And from what I understand, this is the last book that ended up in the TV series before it got canceled. So the next 3 books, I'm not going to have any recollection at all of what's going on. It's going to be a new bit for me, so I'm super excited to get to that. But I loved these first 6 books just as much, if not more, than the TV series. I'm really, really, really enjoying it. And then let's see. I did something that I was very surprised about, but and I don't know if I mentioned that I was starting this in the last episode, but I wanted to get to some Westerns, and I read 3 books by Larry McMurtry, and it's in the Lonesome Dove series. So I did Dead Man's Walk and Comanche Moon. Those are actually prequels that were written after the main book, but they, they're prequels, they come before. But I'm glad I read it in that order because it really got me to love these characters so, so much. So I read both of those, and then the 3rd book was Lonesome Dove, and I was crying. I was just wanting to throw that book across the room at times, and there were times where I was just like, I can't put it down. I was crying. I was laughing, like out loud laughing. It was such a good book. All 3 of them are amazing. But the 3rd one, the original Lonesome Dove, was just so good. It's so good to where I actually went and found the old TV series, I think from the 80s or early 90s, with Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones. Oh my God, I cried again. It was like I wasn't ready to let go of those characters. So I watched it and I cried again. It was so amazing, and it's right up there with some of my favorite books of the year, with The Count of Monte Cristo and War and Peace. I'm just having a really good time exploring different genres, different authors, new to me. And I'm finding some that I'm not enjoying, you know, and I am finding some that I'm absolutely loving. And that was one that I loved. There's a fourth book, Streets of Laredo. I haven't gotten to that yet because I'm still thinking about the ending of Lonesome Dove. So I'm like, oh, it's probably going to rip my heart out the way that the other ones did. And I don't know that I'm ready to do that again. So, but I still plan to read Streets of Laredo very soon. And then spooky season is coming upon us. So I started reading things that were a little spookier. So Ray Bradbury came in there. I did Something Wicked This Way Comes. And then another one that is very similar actually to Something Wicked This Way Comes. And that was called The Halloween Tree. And I did both of those on audiobook and it was very, very good. Very kind of whimsical and yet kind of spooky at the same time, just very weird. Really, really enjoyed those. And they were quick listens. I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and I was expecting that. I don't know why. I was expecting that to be spooky, but it wasn't. It was more just kind of weird in the sense it's like a classic gothic mystery romance, you know, where you've got the young girl randomly marrying some rich guy and going off to his giant mansion and weird things happen. So it was that kind of feel. And I like those stories. But I didn't know that's what Rebecca was. For some reason, I thought it was a scary ghost story. That's not what it was. But I really enjoyed it. Had a good time with that. Then I did this one, which had been recommended to me by one of my son's friends, Dan Simmons, Summer of Night, and it was really, really good. I kind of have been, other people on the Discord that I'm on, Mike's book reviews, were also reading this, and they kind of said it was similar to Stephen King's It. And I could see that. I could see some of those elements in here. But I also saw The Stand in a little. And what's the other one? Guillermo del Toro's The Strain. A little bit like that, but I think that book came after this one, or that series by Guillermo del Toro came after this one. But I read him before and I wasn't sure about him. I read The Terror, and I had to stop that book after about 2/3 because it just kind of turned too weird. And I mean, I'm a Stephen King fan, and for this to be, it wasn't even scary. It was just weird. So I stopped reading it. So I thought I'll give it another try. And this did the same thing. I loved the first 2/3. The last third, and for a different reason. This time the last third fell off because I just didn't like the resolution of the story. It was already weird to begin with. And I expected that, so it was fine. But it turns out this is the beginning of a series of 4 books. So I'm curious to see if that's just his way of writing and if I actually like it or not. I can't really tell if I like him or not. So I'm going to read the other 3 books in that series. It's Children of the Night, Fires of Eden, and then A Winter Haunting. And from what I understand, those other 3 books each book follows a different character that was part of this. And I don't know what happens after that. I don't know if it's like a continuation of the same situation or if they're doing their own thing and they end up in other situations. I don't know how that's going to go. But I read that. So we'll see if I end up liking other things by him. We'll see. But I want to give him a fair shot because I hear so many people just talking on and on and on about how good Dan Simmons is, especially comparing him to Stephen King. So we'll see. And then this one I found in one of the little free libraries, and I got it just based on my nerdiness. Look at that. It says A Mathematical Mystery. That's why I got it. It's Pythagoras' Revenge. What is that? Arturo Sangali. I didn't know anything about this book other than it has something to do with math and a mystery. And I can basically understand what the Pythagorean theorem is, so I thought, I'm going to do it, and it's super, super short. It's not even 200 pages long. I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it, and there were some parts that were just a little bit dry and textbooky. But the overall story was pretty good, and I really enjoyed that. And actually, I just finished that this morning. And then the other book that I want to mention. Okay. I listened to The Exorcist by, is it William Blatty? Or is it William P. Blatty? I can't remember. But The Exorcist, yes. The famous, very, 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 very scariest of ever movies was a book first. And I didn't know that for a long, long time. I saw The Exorcist when I was about 8 or 9. Don't ask me what my parents were doing because I have no clue. But I watched it at a very, very young age. And to this day, nothing has scared me since, except for, as far as movies, except for maybe the original Hellraiser and Event Horizon. But even that's kind of iffy. I still think that The Exorcist was the scariest and still is the scariest to me of all time. And it was only maybe about 10 or so years ago that I realized it was actually a book. I had no clue. And I kept saying, I'm never going to read that. I don't want to read it. I don't want to read it. I don't want to read it. And for some reason this year I decided I'm going to do it. So I got it on audio through my library, and it was actually read on the audio by the author, which doesn't always go well. Sometimes it's cool because, the author is giving the actual voices that he intended to the characters, like, as far as the personality that goes into creating the voice. But some authors are just not, they just don't read out loud very well, or they don't put that little bit of theater into it. But he did. William Blatty did really, 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 really well. And let me tell you, when he was doing the voice of the demons, creepy as hell. So scary, but it was so, so good. And yeah, the book is scarier. The book is definitely scarier, which says a lot. Will I buy it? Probably not. Will I listen to it again someday? Maybe, because he did really, really well. Had a really good time with that. So yeah, that was all, well, that's not all the reading I did. I did, like I said, dozens of books, mostly audiobooks. Some of them are very long. Some of them are like 45 minutes long. Audible has all these little short things, and so does my library. So I went through a lot of audiobooks. You know what? Speaking of, I finished everything that Michael Crichton did under his name. I know he's written some other books under a pseudonym. I haven't read any of those, and I really don't plan to, because I don't think that they're science fiction. I think there's something else, and I was really wanting science fiction. But I've finally finished all of his other books written under the name Michael Crichton. There was one, The Andromeda Evolution, which is supposed to be a sequel to The Andromeda Strain. But I haven't read that because I have this problem with authors passing away and another author taking over the writing that a book had only been partially done, It doesn't ever feel the same. I think I mentioned this back when I was talking about some Agatha Raisin books by M.C. Beaton. And the last book that I listened to had been taken over by a different author because she had passed away. And I didn't want to read this last Michael Crichton book, because I don't know how much of it was Michael Crichton and how much was this other author, and I didn't want to feel disappointed, so I haven't read that, and I'm not going to. But as far as everything written by Michael Crichton under the name Michael Crichton, I've read and I got caught up, and I really enjoyed all of them. I had a wonderful journey doing all of that, and I would read them all again. My number one book will always be Jurassic Park as far as his works. Jurassic Park, number one, of course. But Timeline is still up at the top. Surprisingly, Eaters of the Dead and The Great Train Robbery were all at the top. My least favorite was probably Micro. Really disliked Micro. That was kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but supposed to be adult version. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. It was my least favorite. And Lost World was kind of down at the bottom, which is the sequel to Jurassic Park, but I don't know. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for me, and I really don't know why. But I'm super excited to have finished all of the Michael Crichton books. TV series, gosh, I'm watching tons of TV series, because I feel like I'm watching like 2 or 3 different series on each streaming service that I have. So I'm even watching on Netflix. I'm even watching just every now and then Carmen Sandiego. I mean, I'm watching a lot of everything. My son's got me watching Dynasty with him, which we both just started. We're watching it together, which actually I didn't think I would like, but I do like it. Let's see, I'm watching so much. It's hard to even think of them. Should have written them down. Let's see. I am watching The Strain. I mentioned that earlier, by Guillermo del Toro. I'm watching The Strain. And I know that was a series of books, maybe 3 or 4 books, but I only ever read 1.5. I think I stopped halfway through the second book, not for any particular reason, but I just never went back to it. But I'm liking the show. Picard, I started watching Picard. I never watched that before, so that's fun. A Discovery of Witches, I started that. I'm not going to have to go through all of them, but I'm really enjoying all of those. And then here and there, I'm really, really behind on watching podcasts here on YouTube, but I have been trying to keep up with some of them. And if I don't comment, it's just because I'm binge watching a lot, because I didn't do a whole lot of watching for a while. And I'm like a couple months behind. So I'm just kind of watching them. Some of them I'll comment on, but most of them I'm not. I am liking. But the ones that I've been really keeping up on are a Lefty Knitter, Aquila, Kia from Kia Spot. Who else? The names are going right out of my head. Little Big Knits with Selma, keeping up with her. Toad Hollow. I can picture them, I just can't think of the names. Marina Skua, Katie Green Bean. I can't think of the other ones, but those are but there are a few that I'm just really. Oh, and Rebecca from Mean Girl Knits has been doing daily vlogs recently, and I'm really excited. And again, if I'm not commenting, it's not because I'm watching, I'm just not commenting. It just seems too much effort, because I'm watching on my TV, and then that means that I got to go back to my phone and find it and then comment there, and it's a pain in the butt. That's pretty much it. But I mentioned that I might bring up now at the end some of what has been going on, and if you don't want to hear that, you can go ahead and say goodbye now, and I appreciate you and I understand, and thank you so much for being here. But if you do want to know, I'll talk about that now. The last episode, or maybe the one before that, I had gotten COVID, and it took me a long time to recover from that as far as the fatigue. I was just so tired for weeks after having that. And then both my birds died, not at the same time, but you remember my parakeets, they used to always make or not parakeets, canaries. They used to make a lot of noise in the background. First my male died, and then the female died a few weeks later. So I was very sad about that. And then my grandma passed away. And that was, it was sad, but I was never really close with my grandma. This was my dad's mom. She was my last grandparent, but we were never really close, but it was still very sad. Well, during that time, my mom caught COVID. And I got a call from my sister saying that she wasn't doing well, and my mom also passed away. So that was the end of August was when she passed away. So during all of this time, just been kind of processing all of that. And then there was some different issues going on with my kids, and this is their issues, and I'm not going to spell those out here, but you know, a mom worries, and it just, there hasn't been a day since the middle of August that I haven't not wanted to cry. But it's getting better. And like I said, there was weeks and weeks where I did nothing but listen to books, and slowly I started adding cross stitching in there because it was something different. And then crochet started happening, and then I finally got back into my knitting. So now this past, I would say maybe 3-4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. This past 3 weeks I've been really productive as far as my crafting. But just been a lot going on, and a lot still to come. But that's life, that's families, that's love, you know, ups and downs, that happens. And like Avi Kaplan says in his song, I'll get by. But that's enough about that. I went to my sister's the other day, and she invited us all over for pumpkin carving. We did that, so I will probably put a little clip of what we ended up doing. Mine is the ugly, it's supposed to be bats flying in the distance, and it looks kind of okay in the dark with the candles lit, but when the lights were on, I was like, that is horrible. But that one will be mine. I will put that up here. I will see you again either at the end of November or the beginning of December. If you're in the United States, happy Thanksgiving, because that's coming around soon. But I'm so glad that you all chose to spend a little bit of time with me today, and I hope to see you again next time. Thank you for any new subscribers. I know I've got a couple of new subscribers since the last time I checked, and I am very happy that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And if you haven't, please subscribe. I don't usually say that because it feels awkward coming out of my mouth. I don't know why. But hopefully it won't be as long between now and the next time that I podcast. And hopefully I will have, I'm so excited for this crochet cardigan. Like, just looking at the squares brings me so much joy. So hopefully I will have that done next time, but no promises. We'll see.